My name is Daryl Scott. I'm state representative for the 31st District, which is here in Dover. And I call Kentucky home. That's where Mom still lives today. How did I get into politics? My father served in the Air Force for 27 years, and Mom and Dad had started a volunteer fire company in southeast Kentucky after a uncle's home had burned, and the closest fire company was 20 miles away. So a commitment to service has been a part of my family, and so I was looking for how might that manifest itself in me. So when I moved to Delaware, the place I started was in the schools, being a volunteer on the PTO, serving on a school advisory committee, serving on a superintendent's advisory committee, and then supporting a referendum. And then I ran for school board in 2005 and served for 3.5 years there before running for state office.
How's it been?
It's been incredible. I mean, as I tell people, I'm having a blast. It's by far the most rewarding thing I've ever done. At times, it's also the most challenging. Challenging in that even with a $3.5 billion budget, there are things that you can't, people come to you with problems that you can't solve. And it makes you realize, too, that government's role isn't to solve all of those problems. So you have to get creative and reach out into the community. And there are many nonprofits and individuals that are willing to help. And you've just got to get creative about ways to help people. Rewarding, I never imagined, Delaware's small, so you're able to see the impact of some of your legislation. So the Inspire Scholarship was a bill that I sponsored. I got an opportunity to kick off an Inspire Day of Service at DSU. I am a military brat. My father served in the Air Force for 27 years. My mother actually served, and then I guess at the time she served, when they got married, she had to leave the military. So having moved a number of times, I'm personally aware of the impact it has on families and kids. And as I got elected, began to become more aware of other issues as well. In particular, military spouses. I know my mom, in transitioning, didn't work out. Worked occasionally outside of the household. But in today's day and age, many times you've got both spouses that are working, the person that's in the service and their spouse. And as you transition in, those transitions at times are hardest on them. One is getting licensed for their new position. And sometimes those licensing processes take 6 months. And so we just introduced legislation that would allow military spouses to get a provisional license so that they can begin looking and get gainful employment while we go through the licensing process. To part of your question about do we do enough for them or do we recognize the issues and impacts, Dover as a community, is very supportive of the Dover Air Force Base. The state is incredibly supportive of the Air Force Base as well. And the legislature in 2009 passed legislation that would recognize Military Spouse Appreciation Day the Friday before Mother's Day. And it's a small way, but it's memorialized. We don't have to do a resolution each year. It's each and every year that Friday is set aside to recognize military spouses. How did I become interested in bow ties? It was an idea a couple of years ago before the first day of session. I was looking through my ties and saw I had a couple of bow ties and said, hey, I'll give this a shot. I had to pull out a YouTube video to help me tie it the first time. I had forgotten. And then in talking to friends, found a local U.S.-made firm in Vermont that made bow ties here in the U.S. and reached out to them. And not only do they make bow ties, but you can send old neckties to them and have them converted. So I began converting my necktie collection to bow ties.